And no.
It is in progress. Meeting recording is in progress.
Yeah. Damn it. Yeah. So yes, what did you say?
Yes, my question was when I reset when I press the reset button, it should it's supposed to show me the reset number, but
What do you mean? I don't understand.
when I start this function, so I should be able to increment and decrement,
Yeah.
right? And then when I reset it, so it just collapses and it doesn't show me the reset number. I mean, it should be reset from that particular number where I started
Yeah.
from which.
So here we start at 7.
Yes,
We increment. We say reset. It will be 7 again.
mine doesn't do that.
Maybe because in your reset you are not putting this dot props dot initial value in your reset.
I did.
Okay. Not sure. What's the problem? What does it show?
It just collapses. There are 3 buttons:
What do you mean
increment,
by
decrement,
collapses?
reset,
What do you mean
but
by
there is a number.
collapses? What does collapses mean?
The number, it just disappeared.
Uh,
It, I will paste my code here in Slack.
yeah, do that. Class counter list props initial value increment status value. Yeah, right. Yeah, but you are saying this dot state dot any. What does this dot state dot any means? That doesn't mean anything. Can you hear me?
Yes.
In your reset method, you are saying this dot state dot any. Any doesn't exist. There's no such a thing called any.
Oh, okay.
You should do it the same way I'm doing it here. Like this dot props dot initial value. That's the error. So you can maybe have some time and fix it. Other than that, do you have any questions? Like, did any questions pop up into your mind while? No.
Jonas, just a simple question. Normally, when we want to make a space between two buttons, so we do it in CSS or just we write BR open tag and close tag.
Yeah.
So, but here I have two questions. The first question is here. Normally in HTML we can use just open tag because BR it doesn't have any content, so we can just use BR open tags. So here, the first question, why we can't write BR without close tag, and the second question, can we do spacing between two buttons without BR, another method, for example?
First thing is that anything you do in HTML is the same as here. So if you are used to BR or HR, you can do that. There's nothing that stops you from doing that.
Okay.
Like there's nothing different from JS6 than HTML. This is like HTML.
So the another way we can do with another way or just BR?
CSS.
Okay, just that. Okay.
Yeah, you should do it in CSS. Anything that it's sort of like related to how things should look like.
I'm just asking if there are another way. It's okay.
No, but even if there is another way, you should limit JavaScript to logic, HTML to structure, and anything visual to CSS. So there is some other ways, but anything visual should be CSS only.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Any questions, people?
I have one more question.
Yeah.
About the const current value.
Yeah.
In the case that we are repeating the use 2 times. Can I just take it outside the method?
Which?
Line 15 and line 20, they are repeating. And when I comment it, that crashes the code. So I need them. But there is a way to define them
19.
outside the method.
Like you mean this one? 19 and 14?
Yes. So I defined it just once
Yeah,
and then I
but
can use it in each method.
But honestly, don't be obsessed with like this is one line of code. You will not create a function just to reuse one line of code.
But
This,
if I want to take it out, then I need to create it in a function.
yeah, you need to create a function that returns it. Yes.
Ah, okay. Perfect.
But you can also eliminate it and just put it here. Like put it here. And remove current value.
Yeah, but it's better to make it more explicit, I guess.
Yeah, it is. I have another. So if nobody has anything to say in terms of questions, I want to show you something else. So there is something called destructuring in JavaScript. I don't know if people are familiar with destructuring. Okay, so let's say we have an object. Object equal name. And it's an object with first, say units. Okay? And we have age is 25, for example. Does this make sense? It's just an object with a name and first inside it. I can do, if I want, for example, age, I can do age equal object dot age. This is valid. There's a better way of doing it inside JavaScript, or the new JavaScript from ES6 from 2015. You can do this. You can say, for example, you can do let open an object and put an object on the right side, like this. Sorry. The object is obj. Right here, you can destructure. What I mean by destructure is like take properties from inside this left or this right-hand object. So if I will type age, this is the same as saying let age equal object.age. Does it look weird or it's better?
Yeah, good. Okay.
The new age, the one, would it be an object or would it be kind of a simple variable?
What?
These two commands, would they produce the same
Yes.
type of variable?
This doesn't.
Because the first one looks.
This
Because the first one looks that age would be an object, but the second one looks that the.
No. Can you hear me? This doesn't create an object.
Okay.
This means like open the object for me and take these from inside it and create them as variables.
Okay.
So it doesn't create an object, but instead it opens an object and take things from inside it. You can, for example, take also first. So once we do this, first, sorry. What just happened? That's super stupid. We can say this name.
Okay.
So age is 25 and name is an object with first units.
Mm-hmm.
I can go further and do this. From name, I can take inside, I can take first. So first now is equal to units. This alternatively can be object dot name dot first. It's like first equal this. So instead of like going inside the object, I can just destructure an object and take 3-4 variables at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Does this make sense for the others?
Yes.
Yes, just one question.
Yeah.
Which properties are those variables going to have? It's going to be a variable, it's going to be an object. That's the only thing that was confusing.
As I told you before, this is equal to Okay, I will show it to you in a better way. I will how it's called. We will this is how it will be. Var object is just our object. Age is object.age, name is object.name. So it literally creates, you can see how Babel translated to old browsers. It's like literally creating random variables with var. Does this make sense?
Okay.
So it's like creating variables, like literally, like the same way. So this is not a new trick. This is just saving you some space. You can also see with this one. First is equal to object.name.first. And there is a var here. This is underscore object just to save a copy of the object. It's some stupid internal things in Babel. Doesn't matter. But just focus on this one. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Nice. So
Yes.
we can apply this in our React code. Instead of saying value, we say here value. We open an object and we say value. And we do like this. We take value from state. And here too. We say const. We say this.state. And from inside the state, we want to take value. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. So this is just like writing nicer code, if I would say. Like it's not.
I think we were already exposed to this in Node.js.
Okay, nice. Nice. Glad to hear that. So this is called destructuring. You're destructuring an object. You're like pulling it, pulling properties from it. So yeah. Another thing I want to go a bit far with is like, let's say we want to show and hide the this counter with a button. So we will have a button that toggle opens and hides the counter. Does that make sense? We have a button here. Like I can put it here. Toggle. So this button, when I click it, I'm supposed to hide this and show it again. It makes sense for people?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do that. So you need to think about it. It's like, what's this? So is this state? Does it need state? It needs state because I need to store if I'm showing or hiding. Okay. Another thing is that what's the shape of my state? Is it like a Boolean? I have, of course, it's an object, but it's a property inside it. Do I want it a number so I can increment it? Do I want it a Boolean, or to hide it? Do I want it an array, an object? How do I want it?
Just a Boolean should be enough.
Boolean.
Exactly, it's a Boolean because it's either hide or show. Hide or show. So let's do the same thing here. Let's say, so as we did before with the constructor, now let's do it without a constructor, just to show you both ways. So we can say state equal, and just like for example, we can say is shown, or we can just say is show. And we give it true, because initially we want it to be shown. Now what are we gonna do? How we can use this one?
When
We need
click
to
the
create
button-
one more for hiding.
When we click the button, the state should change from true to false.
Yeah, then we should need a function target this.
Yes, before that, how I can show and hide?
We can hide a div which
Visibility is a do we have some property like visibility?
Yeah, so are people familiar here with the ternary operator? It means this: const x equal true, do something, or so.
Yes, for if and else.
Yeah, something here, something here. Is everyone here familiar with this concept, ternary operator?
No.
Yes.
Okay, so what does it mean? If it's true, run this code or return this code. So here, for example, we say hello, else. Or we can say if, else. If it's true, it will return this. If this is false, it will return this. So if we go here, we can say the same way we can say, for example, if x equal 5, we can say result is it's 5, else result is it's not 5. So the same way we can do it here, and of course we need the let result. We can simplify it and say let result equal x equal 5, do double equal, triple equal, sorry. We can do, if this is true, return this. If it's false, return this.
This is called truthy or falsy values.
This is called ternary operator.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. Yeah, I think we saw that also with Vlad in the last module.
Yeah.
Guys, by the way, can I just say something? If you want to have another example, we did something identical with Alicia during JavaScript. Do you remember the pizza exercise? It's there. We did it.
So this is the thing about ternary operator. If this is true, it will take this one and put it on the right side. Otherwise, it will return this one. So it's like literally like an if else. So what we can do here is do a ternary operator. And of course, we need JavaScript here. So we will say here const is show equal this dot state. And we will say is show we'll put our component. Otherwise, we will say p nothing to show. Does this make sense? If it's true, we return this one. If it's false, we return this one. I assume it's right.
There is logic, but where are we doing show and hide thing of?
We are still we don't have that. I told you before, there's no magic. We need to build it. We need to add an on-click listener on the button and do all the repetitive work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we need to say this does toggle. And we say toggle equal like this. And we say this dot set state. And we can say here const is show. Okay, we can just do it in one line. This dot state dot is show. And we can say not here. Is everybody familiar with the not? What I mean is that if I have true, I would say not true is false. If I would have false, I would say not true, not false, which is true. So I will keep switching between true and false, true and false, true and false. Does this line make sense? Only this line. Don't think about the others. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's just flipping. So now if we go to the UI, we say toggle, and we have nothing to show, nothing to show, nothing to show.
Yunus, one question.
Yeah.
Now, every time that we turn this on and off, the value will be reset to 7.
Yes. So if you increment here, you toggle, you show, it will be reinitialized. Because this component is removed completely. And after that, it will be added again. Yes.
And if we want to avoid that, we should keep this last value somewhere and then initialize based on that value, right?
There is so many ways of doing it. You can of course do it yourself as an exercise, which is like super interesting to do. But I would say the most logical thing is to actually either somebody of you said that you can only change the CSS of this one, so you don't really hide it, you only change the CSS of it, but that's not like right because we want to hide it completely. What you can do is pull the counter. The counter value, you can pull it up and put it here. So even when this hide and show, the counter will be still here. There's so many ways of approaching it, but I think it will be interesting to see your
way of doing this
on this one, because I think that involves a lot of thinking in React. So please, if somebody sort of wants to do it, you can pull me aside in the discussion or something, and we can talk about that. It's interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Does this make sense?
Yep.
Cool. Yes, so we are, I think, set. So this is the concept of state. Does it, like, do you sort of course, it needs practice. Nothing can be explained. It's really up to you to go and sort of practice it. But I'm just trying to show you sort of how the big picture and things sort of fit inside it. So does something seems illogical, or you don't get something, or something does feel smelly, like it's not right, or I don't know if somebody of you like sort of experience sort of something is not triggering, why this change or why that change or why we do this or why we do that, or it's clear like why we are doing things.
Yeah, clear
Or
for
it's
me.
clear. Yeah, it needs practice. but it's clear.
It needs practice, definitely. Like nothing can be learned in a couple of hours. You can get a picture, but it's really sort of up to you to go home and practice, especially about React, because it's a mental shift, a mental model. So I think with this, we are sort of good with state. The only thing that I want to sort of like keep in your mind that state is not just a number. State could be an array, could be anything. So if we had a list of to-dos or something, we will not have value here, but we will have, for example, you can put multiple values here, by the way, it's an object. It's just a normal object, there's nothing special about it. You can say, for example, to-do list, and it will be an array. And every time you want to add an element, you need to do this dot set state to-do list is to-do list dot concat or push, or up to you, but I would prefer concat new text or new to-do or something. So the same way you updated a number, you could update an array and replace it. Just don't think about numbers only. You can store anything. You can have an object inside an array, inside an object, inside an array, and it can be like super complex. I would advise you to keep it simple, but it's really a per requirement. Does that make sense? Don't think about it just as a number. We picked a number here and we gave you the exercise about the number so it does kind of fit your mind instead of like fighting with arrays and updating arrays. But it could be anything.
So in the future, can I have an object with the states on it?
You can have, for example, here to-dos, and it's an object, and we can say list, and it's an array, and it's an array of objects, wherever. Like, you can put whatever you want. As long as it's an object with some keys and some values, you can put whatever you want. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Nice. Just so you don't sort of keep your thinking about that. Yes. So I think we can sort of like turn the page of state now, of course, for now, because we will get back to it after. To like, state is one of the most like fundamental thing in React, state and props. But we will introduce like a new concept now, and it's I think the last concept that we will learn about. Everything else will come. It will not be a new thing, but it will be like making it more complex. But we'll introduce something called lifecycle. And before really talking about that, let's pick an example. So let's say that instead of having a toggle like this one, I want to have a counter that automatically increments every second. And I can say start and stop. Does that make sense? A counter, but not manual, it automatically updates. And the way we will do it, I will just create a new file here. I will say timer.js. I will import React from React. What the fuck? Yes. So we will build the timer class, timer extends React dot component with a render, and the render returns. Always start with a dummy UI, with a simple UI to see exactly what you want as actions and stuff. So we will have a div with literally the h1, the counter, h1, and we say it's 0, and we have button called start, and we can say stop. And we can import this timer, so we can say import timer from timer, and here we can say, let's comment this and say timer like this. Does this make sense? We created a timer component and we are doing it here. Except it doesn't work because we need to export it. So we say default, export default timer like this. Does this make sense? We have start and stop. They don't do anything. Awesome. So if you really think about it, what's a timer? A timer is just some UI, and it updates every 1 second or 2 seconds. Let's say it's a timer for like 1 second only. It will update on
Stopwatch, like stopwatch.
Exactly, that's a timer. So, but how does it work on a technical level? You have a UI, you have a function that runs every 1 second.
Yeah, we use set interval.
Like a set interval or set timeout, exactly. And that updates the state. So it's literally like our counter. But instead of incrementing and decrementing based on the user actions, waiting for the user to click,
okay,
we will call increment every second, not waiting for the user.
Yes.
Does it make sense?
Oui.
So, how do we do that? First thing, let's introduce a state. Let's say state equal, say counter. What? My computer blocked. Whoa. Let's say counter. Yeah. It's just a number. Let's start with 0. And we can say here const counter equal this dot state. And we can put the counter here. Okay. Now I also need the increment, so I will copy the increment from here. And it will take counter here. And just say counter. So now what we want is when this component will first appear on the screen, I want it to sort of be visible. And it's visible, that's done. I want to start the counter. So I want to only start the counter while we are showing the component, this timer component. Does it make sense? We need to start a timer. We need to start a set interval or set timeout as we said before. So where we can put that, if somebody can suggest, like where we can put the timer, like the set interval, because we need the set interval that calls increment. We need to do this, like set interval every 1 second, call increment.
It should be somewhere in the
We
index.
should render it again and again. So render.
But if we will put it in render, it means every time we render, we will start a new counter.
No, it should be in index.js.
If it will be inside index.js,
In a start button,
yes, but let's assume that it started by default. As we said, in the screen, it will, once it appears on the screen, it will start the counter.
I will put it as a method between the increment and the render.
But where you will call the method, when, that's my idea. My idea is not the method, my idea is when you call it. So
you mean Yunus, when we refresh the browser, for example, it will start automatically?
yeah,
You mean that? Okay.
yeah, that's what I mean exactly.
So it should be under this h1 counter h1.
What?
It should be just in the line that you have selected, on this line that you have commented.
But if we will do that,
Can I say something? We had have it in HTML when we have, for example, a music button. So we have attribute. It's called control, auto control. So we can use that here or not?
no, because you will. That's one of the primary things about React is that you don't keep your variables or your state in the HTML. You control everything inside React, and React is responsible for updating the HTML. It's just
I think
one way.
we should put it inside increment function before incrementing the value.
Yeah, but who's gonna call increment?
Is this a question
Window
about
onload.
I'm just trying sort of to make you sort of sweaty in your mind, like thinking, like
Jonas,
what? Yes.
is this orientated to component did mount and component will unmount?
It is
Is
exactly
that?
where I'm going. End of the day.
Yes,
That's what I'm going. So
that's what we need to do. Yeah.
yes. So what we need to do, or what React needs to give us. So this is not really your fault. It's React's fault. We need a way from React. So React can tell us, okay, I am here. I have started.
Document ready or window upload onload.
No. We are not. We are talking about components. We are not talking about the web page. If you do it on the web page, it means if you have 7 components, they all have different logic. You cannot do it in the DOM. Think about that. The way counter needs to work independently. So the way we want to do it is that on this component, when this component will be done rendering, we will start the timer. Does that make sense? When this component will be done rendering, means it's on the screen, I am sure I will start the counter. And that it's done by using something called component did mount. What's this component did mount? So the same way state is a special name and render is a special name, component did mount is also a special name. Why it's a special name? Because React assumes that we will sort of use it for a specific purpose. The same way React will assume that we will use render here to return our HTML, and we will have state to store the changing state. Component did mount is used just right after the component is on the screen. So for example, if we say console.log, component did mount, and we say here console.log render. If we refresh, what do we get? We get a render, and after that a component did mount. Why it's that? First thing, why did component did mount is getting called? We didn't call it. We didn't say this.component did mount, like this.increment. Who's calling it?
It's called after in the render function. After something is returned, component did mount confirms it, right?
So you are saying that it's called automatically by React.
It's kind of an event.
What do you mean? Like I didn't understand.
It's kind of event. I mean, the event is
Event. Yeah, it's kind of an event. Because for example, if you think about render is an event. But who's calling render and who's calling component did mount? Who's calling these methods? Did we ever call render? When you created the timer, did we call render? We don't. React does call render for us. And if we name it render too, that breaks, because render is not a function. So React assumes that this needs to be named render. The same way component did mount needs to be named exactly component did mount, like this. And once we put this method here, or this function, after React is done rendering and showing things on the screen, it will call this method. This is why you see a render. After that, component did mount. Because after done rendering, React will call this method. Does this make sense? Not how we use it, but why it's called and how it's called and when it's called. And it's only called once. It means when the component updates, it will not be called again. It will be only called once. It means I'm done mounting. I'm done like being rendered. If you keep updating the component, like incrementing the counter and decrementing the counter, this will not be called again. But render will be called multiple times. Does it make sense?
Component did mount can be independent like render, or should it be always inside the?
It needs to be like everything here needs to be inside. There's nothing that can be independent of a component. Everything inside the component needs to be tied to the component. Props, render, increment, method, state, component did mount, all of them. They live inside the component. They are only about this component. Each component has its own state, each component has its own life cycle, each component has its own render. Does this make sense? Like, of course, not the details, but that we have a method that it's called automatically after React is done mounting or done displaying our stuff on the screen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Yep.
So instead of console log here and component did mount, what we will do is we will start a timer here. We will say this, we will say set interval, and you already said that before. Every 1 second, we will call increment. We can also do it this way. So either this way or this way. Up to you. I think this way is cleaner. Ah, damn it. Does this make sense? And it's this dot increment, not increment. So now if we will go here, we see the counter going up and up and up and up. Why that is happening? Why it's happening? You can see also, before saying why it's happening, we can see that the first time we have a render, we have component did mount, and render is called 22 times, 23 times. So you can see here, render component did mount, render, render, render. That means every time we update the component, render will be called again. But component did mount will not be called again, because component did mount is not for every time we render. It's just that first time we render, we call this one. Or React will call it instead of us. Does this code make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
So instead of having an on-click here, we just called it automatically.
But for this increment that were 1000, for this one to be called every 1 second, we need that this component did mount to be run every 1 second. But this is not the case.
What? I
mean,
didn't understand.
This line, line 8,
Yeah.
will be executed every second.
Yes.
And it's inside the function component did mount.
Yes.
And if it should be, if it should be executed every 1 second, it means that this function component did mount should run every 1 second.
No.
But it's not what we are doing.
No, it's not. Set interval will call this every 1 second. This will not be called every 1 second. Only this will be.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Okay. Sorry. It's not set timeout. It's set interval. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a set interval, not a set timeout.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
I have a question related to logic.
Yeah.
If I were doing this, I will first do increment, right? Because first I need to define the function, and then I will just put it the component did mount. Does the order change the result?
I don't understand. I don't think I get you.
If I'm gonna use a function,
Yeah.
I'm gonna first define it, like 11 to 14,
You mean like
and
this?
then
You mean like this?
yes, exactly.
It's a class. It doesn't matter. It's a class.
So that doesn't, the order of how we define it is not going to alter the result.
No, because everything is defined first, then they will call each other. They get defined, all of them. The class with all its method, it will define first. It will get defined. After that, so the class will look, I have this, I have this, I have a render, I have a state. Now, when I call component did mount, I already saw that I have an increment.
Mm-hmm.
So the class knows exactly what it has before running any code.
Okay. Perfect.
It's like putting name equal Eunice and after that say hi, or putting say hi and after that name equal Eunice. Doesn't matter. Once you say this dot name, it doesn't matter. The order doesn't matter. Does this make sense?
What if we had some comments in line 9? Would it ever executed, or would the
What do you mean?
page be stuck in the?
Which comment? What do you mean by comment?
For example, another console log in line 9. Will it ever be executed, or
Yeah, it
will
will.
it be stuck on line 8?
No, it will be, because this is normal JavaScript. When you put a set interval in JavaScript, JavaScript doesn't stop there. It will continue.
Yeah. Okay.
This is just normal JavaScript. If you put this after this, that doesn't matter. It will still say to the event loop that I want to increment every second and console.log after it. It's just like asynchronous.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true.
Does this make sense?
Yeah.
If you bring the logic back, this logic around toggling and doing this, and if we sort of do the same thing for a timer, if we say here timer, you remember this logic? So now we only show the timer like this. If we toggle, we get an error.
Why it stops?
I will show you something just a second. Timer console.log incrementing. So let's say we have this. We get increment, render, increment, render, increment, render. Now if I will hide it, it will still be incrementing, even that I'm hiding it. Isn't this a bit weird? Because once we remove a component, we want to remove everything inside the component. We don't want some code to be running inside the component, even though we removed it.
We have not stopped the set interval.
We need to stop the set interval, as you said.
Yep.
How we do that? By using a clear interval.
Component will and mount.
Exactly. So the same way we have a life cycle or a method that will be called once the component will be mounted and on the screen, we have also another life cycle method that will be called once the component it's about to disappear or leave the screen. So and how it's called? It's called component will end mount. So here what we can say this dot timer equal this, and we come here and we say clear interval. I assume you remember clear interval. It's the way to stop an interval. And we already stored the timer in this one, so we can say clear interval. Now if we'll refresh, we run it, we stop it, it will stop. It doesn't run again.
Let's suppose if I want to run this and then toggle it and then toggle back, and I want it to be running again,
Yeah,
but not from the starting.
If I will toggle it, it will start again.
There is no way that I can get my timer back, but without stopping.
Well, you can do that. I think this question was just asked like 20 minutes ago or something about the counter here. If we have a value of in the counter and we hide it and we show it, can we store that value? So when we hide and show, it will not start again at 7. If I was at 13 and I hide it, I will show it again, it will be at 13 again. I think that's sort of your question.
Yes, yes and no, because yes, I would like to run my timer again. But what if in some condition I want to keep it running behind toggle? I mean.
Yes. So in that thing, I've said that before. If you want some logic to run even when the component it's not there, it's not shown, means you need to move that logic out and put it in a higher component. So probably the timer should be in the app, because there is a rule in React: if a component disappears, it should clean up after itself. No code from component should run after it disappears. Otherwise, you will have a hell of things running, even though you don't know why they are running. So this is, as I said before, it's a good exercise if you want to do it, and you can pull me in the chat or something. We can discuss that. But basically, the timer, if you want to continue the timer, even if this component will disappear, the timer should not live in this component. Instead, the timer should live here in the app. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
This is a crucial thing. You can try that, you can give it a try, but remember this really well. If a component disappears, it should clean after itself and not let anything run. This is the rule. Otherwise, you will have a hell of things running.
Yes.
You don't know why they are running.
Yes.
Cool. And yeah, nice. Lucha actually shared a lifecycle thing in the in the Slack, so check it out. So
It
does
was
this make
just to prove that. Can you go back to the code, please?
yeah?
Thanks.
Does it make sense? Of course, the details are still, you should be confused because you are learning new thing. If you're not confused, it means like there's no new thing, which there is a new thing, so you should be confused. So this is something normal. But I'm really trying sort of to get the big picture into you, so you don't get confused about like why we use state and why we use life cycle. That's the thing that you should really understand. Of course, the details about the code, you can practice that, but you should really get why state is used and why life cycle is used in this case. Is that clear? Do you have questions about that? Please manifest and say if.
Sorry. But then, what
Yeah.
it's a little bit confusing is life cycle a type of state?
No, life cycle is a method that it's called at a specific time.
And state will be?
So state is the information that it's stored inside your component. So based on how your state will change, it will run a specific life cycle or not. So for example, in the counter, you can increment and that will change the state. So you control when to change the state, but the life cycle, it's something that it's defined. And I have actually a good picture. I can show it to you now. Lesson plan.
Yeah, I want to imagine like in something really, really simple, like the YouTube videos you have gave to us.
Yeah.
In something that simple, I want to be able to identify, okay,
Yes.
this is a life cycle, this
Yes.
is a state, and this is a prop.
Okay, so
it's
let's
possible.
let's take the example of the YouTube. Okay. Let's take that. Please, just a second. Copy image address. Yeah. So let's take the example of YouTube. You have a video player, but before going to the video player, you are actually looking at the list of videos. Okay? You have a list of videos. Once you click on the video, we will show the video player component. The video player component, it's not there. Once we click it, we will show it. And the video will keep advancing each second. So that state, each second the video is advancing. That is state. And before the video will start playing, we need to fetch the video. We need to bring the video, the image, the music of the video. That's a life cycle. So React, you will build the component. We can put it here. We say class YouTube player. It has state seconds and 0, and it will say component did mount. Fetch video content. And render will be return video tag. And each time you are, and there is also a set interval here, update the video seconds on every second. Does that make sense? As a mental model or a story?
Yes. So when the video is finished and it goes to a new video,
Yes.
that is when component will unmount happens.
Exactly. For example, if you are updating on every second and fetching the video, you are fetching the video continuously, okay? Because you are streaming. The video keeps getting. They don't fetch all the video from the beginning. They keep like streaming the video. So in component will end mount, we say Maybe you clicked on another video, maybe you closed the tab, maybe you did something. What we do is stop fetching the video data and clean the video seconds in this state. And if you click on another video, that video will be 0 again. It will fetch the video content, update on every second. You leave that video for another video. The video before, it will stop fetching the video content. Because otherwise, imagine that you are on a video, it will stream data. You go to another video, the old video will be still streaming data while you are also watching the new video. That would be crazy for your bandwidth and for the internet. So we need to do some logic that when a component leaves the screen, we want to run that logic to clean up, to stop stuff, something like that. Does it make sense?
Yeah, and it will be lovely if we can get this example in the Slack channel, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, don't forget the extends React component with the...
Thanks. Yeah. This is a little bit like hard to follow, right? So I feel I need a little bit time to process this.
Yeah, but this is the last
But
concept.
it's clear.
Yeah, this is the last concept that we will learn, and probably this is the last concept in React that we will learn. Because React is props, state, lifecycle. These are the 3 things that they are in React. It's super small. We will not learn anything new, but we will be like advancing more and more into how we can reuse React to build our stuff. But does this make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So let's implement this stop functionality. So if we say on click equal toggle timer. So we can say here toggle timer. And what we need to do is literally the same. It's like the component is leaving. Stop will literally just clear interval the timer so it doesn't run again. Does this make sense? So once we run it, sorry, it's this dot toggle time. So if we are running, we say stop, we stop running. Does this make sense? In terms of stopping, of course, not something else. What if we want to start again? The timer, what are we gonna do?
Just keep on incrementing.
Yeah, but how? We need to start a new set interval, the same way we started it here.
But we need to start it with the value that was before.
No, we don't need that because it's already inside the state.
If you want to start it from 0.
We don't need to start it from 0. We need to start it from where it stopped.
Then we need to insert the value inside a variable, like store its value and then start our counter from there.
Yes, so we need to start the counter again. So here, what I'm gonna say is, so let's say, yeah, let's, I will do it just to keep simple. Stop timer for now, toggle timer. Stop. Start timer. So we can just toggle this one and we say, so this is start timer, this is stop timer. So this should be empty. So stop just clears interval. Start will call this again. That's the logic. That's the tricky part. This is how it should be. And if we make it a bit faster, if we make it on every half a second, stop, start, and it's because this is slow. So we can say start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. Does this make sense?
Yanis,
Yes.
can you please, looking at the code, just think about how it's going to render and call each other?
Yes,
Because it's a little bit confusing.
yes, we can do that. So let's say this is the entry point app. App will render this. It will render this. Is shown is true. So it will render the timer. Okay, we go to the timer. The timer initially defines a counter that is 0 inside this state. Okay. It will call render. Render will print the counter, which is 0 initially, and 2 buttons. And this is what we get here. 0. Okay, after render is done, React will call component did mount because we named it component did mount here, and React knows that it means special thing. It will call it. When it will call it, it will console.log and say set interval. This is why when we refresh, we have incrementation, because after the render, React will call this method and we will start the timer. The timer will keep calling increment every half a second. Increment will take the counter, add 1 to the counter. And we can see it in effect here, going up. Does it make sense until now? Cool.
Perfect.
Cool. Now this is what happened without the user intervening or doing anything. This is like the automatic work. Now, if the user will click stop timer, okay? If the user will click stop timer, it will call this method, and this method will clear the interval. Means if we stop, we clear the interval. It will not run again. If the user clicks on the start timer, it will start a new timer. Does it
That's
make
my
sense?
question. Why you say it's a new timer when we are just keep on
because-
working on what we had?
No, but we clear the interval. Once we clear an interval, the timer will go away. This timer. So the set interval here, when it will be cleared, it will go away. What I mean by the timer going away is not the component timer. It's the set interval. That's what I mean by the timer. I'm sorry. The set interval, we stop it with this. It will be cleared. It will go away. We start a new set interval here.
I want to know where is that value on which we stop the timer? Where is that value stored, so that every time when we on the timer and it creates a new timer, so where did that pick up? I mean, where is that picking up going on in this function?
There is no picking up technically, because we have the counter here. It will keep incrementing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we stop the timer, it will stay at 5. We stop the timer, it will stay at 5. If we start the timer again, it will keep incrementing at 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay.
So there's no picking up. The counter is always there. We either start incrementing it or stop incrementing it.
And
Yes.
that information comes from line 31.
31. Yes, exactly. It's line,
That's-
it's line 31 and also line 80.
Yeah, that's what we were kind of like asked when we say, where is this storage? Is
Exactly.
okay.
We get it from the state and we update it inside the state, and the state will never disappear if we stop the set interval or we start the set interval. It's always there, as long as the component is there. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So does, like, can you see like how can you, like, how you will be using lifecycle? Do you see utility in the lifecycle, or you think it's just a random thing? Like, what's your views on like lifecycle? Like, what do you think about it?
I think it's great, but I need more time to use it with something different. When we are doing the infinite scrolling, are we using this? Like in Facebook, you know, when you're scrolling nonstop.
Not necessarily, because once you are scrolling, what they will do is they will listen for your scroll event.
Ah, okay.
The same way we listen for the click event, they listen for the scroll event. The more you scroll and you go to the end, they fetch new content. They put it there and going on.
Okay. This, I think it needs a little bit more time.
Yeah, definitely.
But I would like to ask, because we need to update the to-do list in the homework.
Yeah.
Are we going to be using the list of keys with the index and all that stuff? Because we are supposed to erase in the homework, we need to do it more interactive so we can erase and everything. So maybe you want to talk about the key index?
No, but I don't
No,
like
we don't need that.
No, that's like, I think that's like really optional as far as I remember. So that's like people can read more about like how to do like deep update.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an extra add possibility to, yeah, it's an extra to delete. But I would say that if you have how it's called, this is why I was emphasizing on the state. If you have a counter on the state and you want to update it or increment it, or you have an array and you want to add an element or remove an element from it, that doesn't change any logic. That it should be the same. The same way in JavaScript, when you think about a variable or an array, there's no difference between them because they are all variables. The same thing in state. An array in state or a counter in state, there's no difference. The only difference is how you update it and how you access it. You will map over an array, but you will only display a counter. You will increment the counter, but you will push into an array. But the mechanism and how they are stored and how they behave, completely the same. They are just variables. Does that make sense?
Yes, and when I look at that picture of lifecycle methods,
yeah.
So there is mounting and updating and
let's discuss that picture because I want to discuss it. So thank you for making the point. Yes, so this is one of the most famous pictures in the React world, which is the lifecycle picture. It explains, I know maybe it's like it looks super difficult or maybe there's a lot of things, but let's break it down. Let's break it into mounting, updating, and end mounting. Does that make sense? So
yes.
When you mount your component for the first time, what I mean by mount, the component will appear on the screen for the first time you visited the web page. It will be doing something called mounting. It will call the constructor. So it will call the constructor because that's the first thing to call. So we can initialize the state and so on. There is this life cycle, get derived state from props. We don't need it. That's something that you should not use 99% of the time. It's probably going to be deprecated, but this is something you can read more about it, but it's not something you are meant to use in any of the homeworks or something. So from the constructor, it will call a render. If you see it here. mounting constructor render. When it's done rendering, it will go to component did mount. That's how it mounts. We call the constructor, we call render to display stuff, and we call at the end component did mount. That's done. That's what mounting is. That's the first time React shows something on the screen. Does this make sense? Cool.
Yes.
Now we have the updating. What does the updating means? Means if you call set state, you are updating the component. If props change, if for example you decide to change this prop on the counter here, initial value, the counter will also update. But for now, let's keep it only for set state. That's how we used it. So once you call set state, like here, set state will render again. When you call set state, it will re-render again. And it will not call component did mount. It will call something called component did update. We didn't talk about it. We don't have a use case for it. But keep in mind, if you want to run the code after the component is done mounting for the first time, you use component did mount. If you want to run a code every time the component gets updated, every time after the update, you put it in component did update. So the difference between component did mount and component did update is component did mount is called once after the render, the first time. This one is called every time we update. Third phase, which is end mounting. It means when the component is about to be end mount, which is removed from the screen, we will not be displaying it anymore. It will be calling component will end mount. So it's like leaving, it's end mounting. So it's a did mount, a did update, and a will end mount. So many names, so many confusions. You are not meant to sort of stick them into your head now. What you should focus now on is mounting constructor, did mount, and render. All the other things, you will learn them as you need them, because otherwise you will just not finish. Like getting stuck with all the life cycles. Does it make sense? Any
I
questions?
have a
about this?
tricky question.
Yeah.
Why we are using now component did mount and will and mount when we could have used component did update? No, I'm going to reformulate the question.
Yeah.
Could have we used component did update after every second or timer change?
For what purpose? Because I want to have a timer once. I want to, like, the timer should be, set interval should be called once in the beginning. Not every time we update, we call timer. So we have a timer, it will update the component, we create a new timer, but the old timer is still around. So we keep creating infinite amount of timers. So it really depends on the context. If you want something to be done on the first time, like fetching the video, you fetch the video on the first mount. But every time, if the user stops or pauses the video, you want to show something, that's a component did update, because you want to react to an update of the user. And if you want to sort of stop fetching the video and stop the counters and stop everything when the component will disappear, you use component will end mount. You cannot replace component will end mount with component did update, because they are called at different point of times. Like you are supposed to work at this time and do something else at this time. You cannot like switch the time. Each one of them has its own specific time where it's called. So it's really based on you. Like you should imagine and say, I don't know if Fernando has like a better explanation about this, but it's really time based. I don't know if that's answer your questions.
Yeah. And I think I also need like to read a little bit more, right?
Yeah, and you need to practice a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's like learning a programming language, because React gives you a set of APIs, so you need to sort of map them into your way of thinking. So you are able to actually, every time you have a problem, to map it to React. The same way you have a problem, you map it to JavaScript. You have a problem, you map it to React. It's just a tool.
I totally agree with Jonas. The only thing I would say is just that component that you update, it's something that will be called every time you have a change on your props, sorry, on your props or on your state. So that's the major thing. It's not about exactly what's going on with the component in terms of it's going to be rendered, it's going to be hidden. It's more about something has changed while it's mounted. So if it's the prop or it's the state, and then you can react to that changes to do something else.
Does that make sense?
Yes, but I need to think more about it.
Yeah, of course. Like, there is no sort of material or resource that will replace your mind. Your mind needs to get it at the end. I think that's like most of the things that we needed to cover today.
We didn't talk about force update.
About what?
Force update.
Yeah,
The
we
last thing
don't
in
need to
the
talk about force update.
no.
No. Like this, like the thing is that you need to make the start. So I try to teach you the 20% that makes you do the 80%. That's sort of what I'm trying to struggle for. Okay. I can try to like make you understand get snapshot before update and React updates DOM refs and get derived state from props. But if you're gonna use it 1%, what's the purpose of that? So what we study today is like 90%. And it's really up to you to go and master React. No class will make you master React.
Okay.
Yeah, there's tons of resources of React in the web. So you can basically find any kind of thing regarding any kind of application you want to build. So I know there's tons of these examples where they build the UI of Instagram from scratch. So you can just follow the tutorial and build all the components and see how it works. So there's like lots of things for you if you want to master React.
Okay. And one more thing, the list which was provided to us for this class, week 2, there was a list keys. There was a topic called list keys. Did we talk about this as well?
No, we didn't talk. I think it's too minor to talk about, honestly.
Okay.
You should be able to also read on that.
Okay.
Because most of you they noticed the red error on the screen from last time when they render a list of things. They noticed in the console that there is a red message talking about keys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So copy it, paste it in Google.
Okay.
And you will understand. But yeah, so please just try to make it, because like that's the thing about React. I can keep explaining component did mount and update and state, but as long as you don't try and sort of get stuck and get back with feedback, it's just so difficult to sort of learn it. Because it's
yes, because we learn with experience, from experience.
Especially something like React. This is not like basic JavaScript or something. It doesn't make sense. It's built by
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you can tell me how I should practice, in the sense, like where I can get questions to practice.
Yes, I would say first thing that you should do, just try to sort of imagine all the examples that you did before in normal JavaScript and HTML. And
Okay.
to convert them to React, so you get a hand of the mindset. That's the first thing. Practice a lot by like just building smaller examples that you already built before, so we can notice the difference. Because noticing the differences was one of the main parts about building that mental model. That's the first thing. The second thing, as like Fernando said, there's a ton of YouTube videos and a ton of resources, and also like in the React doc, and also in the preparation and the lesson plan and the homework for Hacker Future. There's so many resources, so you can just go and see. For example, as Fernando said, there's people who build like to-do lists, people who build like Instagram clone, Facebook clone, like of course super simple ones. but just go and see how they build it. But before building it with them, try to build it yourself and compare it and see what's wrong, and compare it again and see what's wrong. Sort of the thing.
Okay.
Yes, one thing that I think helps as well is to use console log. Console log is the major way of debugging JavaScript, I guess. So put it everywhere. Everywhere you are curious to see what's coming from. So let's say component did update. You could just get the arguments from that and just console log and see when it's been called. That kind of curiosity helps you get your head around the concepts.
Exactly. If you don't have any questions, or
Not related to this topic, but I have some questions about my homework before React Node homework because I messed some things up. So if somebody has time to look in my code, so that would be very helpful. And if not, so I can send the link.
I'm not sure. I will try. I don't promise. I will try, but I cannot really promise you, honestly.
Because there is something wrong with my connection because it was working fine yesterday, and at the night it just got blank. I cannot see anything on my screen.
Yeah,
What is there?
yeah. Honestly, I try to not to do any cross-class sort of teaching or review.
Okay.
I try to not do that as much as possible because it's not sort of fair. But maybe I'm not sure. Maybe you can also reach to one of. I think there's so many mentors that can help, including me. And so just just reach out to me. Yes, I will try. And if it's not me, there is so many. There's plenty of people who can help. So definitely you are not stuck or something.
Okay.
Yeah. I assume there is no more questions unless there is. If there is no more questions, I think we are done for today. So if we stop.
Sorry, just can I ask you if it's possible you send the video today?
Yes, I will try to send it today in the night.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.